Welcome to the Living to 100 Club podcast. Here's our host, Dr. Joseph Casciani.
Well, hello to everyone joining us today. You're listening to the Living to 100 Club podcast, and I'm your host, Joe Casciani. I'm passionate about helping people embrace the principles of psychologically healthy aging, staying positive, finding purpose, and making the most of all the years we're given, no matter what challenges come along. Each episode, we bring you conversations that educate and inspire, guiding you to age with resilience, optimism, and a positive mindset. Thanks for being part of this journey with us. Now let's dive into today's conversation. Dating after 50 comes with unique challenges, but also exciting opportunities for fresh starts and meaningful connections. In this episode of our podcast, I sit down with Andrea McGinty, a pioneering dating expert and founder of It's Just Lunch, to discuss her new book, Second Acts, Winning Strategies for Dating Over 50. Andrea shares practical tips on navigating the modern dating landscape, from choosing the right online platforms to making a strong first impression. We also explore how aging doesn't mean slowing down. It's an opportunity to redefine relationships, embrace new adventures, and connect in deeper, more authentic ways. An exciting conversation is on its way. Stay tuned. First, a little background. Andrea McGinty has been the founder of several other successful businesses, but her passion remains helping people with their dating lives. She's been doing that since she was 14 years old and fixing up friends in high school and college. After selling It's Just Lunch, Andrea began writing dating profiles and coaching others when friends and family began dating online. She would roll her eyes at the photos and descriptions some of them used. As with most successful things, word of mouth grew about her practical winning approach, so Andrea decided to turn it into a business again. In the 2020s, Andrea became a firm believer that there is someone for everyone. It just takes the right strategy online with an incredible pool of singles, and she's a firm believer that dating should be fun, not work. In working with Andrea, you'll find her enthusiasm is not just about dating, but getting to know and help you. Andrea, welcome to our program.
Thank you, Joe. Thanks for the nice introduction too. And I one thing you said really resonated with me. It's all about a positive outlook and a positive attitude.
Yeah.
That's so much of as we age in general.
Yeah.
What determines the outcome. And being 50, 60, 70, it's not like it was in our parents or grandparents era. It's totally changed. And when people call me and they say, oh, I'm 65, do you think I'm too old to date? I'm like, no, you've still got another good 20, 25 years, 30 years, God only knows how many years in you. And of course, we want to find you a companion, a long-term relationship. So, life doesn't end at 60 or 70.
No, I think we're both breaking down those walls, right? We create a new mindset, a new outlook about our future. That's the beauty of aging well. Yeah.
Yep, you're absolutely right. And I know you and I spoke about this before, but living a happy, healthy life and with longevity, so much of it is about having a person that we love as a companion in our life. It's community too. Of course, you can say it's eating a good diet and hitting 10K on your step, a good old Apple Watch, every day. But really what it comes down to is having those people that you're close to, and a romantic relationship really helps with longevity. And I'm sure that more, so much about longevity that I'm sure you would probably agree with that.
For sure, I do, 100%. There's so many ingredients to living well and aging well. And we know relationships, the importance of engagement, staying connected. That's at the top. That's at the top. So let's start out with your book. Let's jump right into it. Second Acts, Winning Strategies for Dating Over 50 offers guidance for those re-entering the dating scene. Well, so what inspired you to write it? And what are the key takeaways? Yeah.
Well, you know what? I think this book's been in me a long time, and you get busy with life and everything else, and I'm working with clients, and all of a sudden I just had this urge to write it all down. And I think maybe part of it was because I would hear the same questions or the same complaints or negativity about certain things, and I kind of wanted to get rid of all of that. And so my book's not, I'm not a psychologist, that's for sure. I'm just really good at fixing people up and, finding people that go together. Like there's a lid for every pot or a pot for every lid or however you want to say it. And so when I sat down to write the book, it was really, I had so many real life stories about people over the years. I mean, I've set up over 33,000 dates and had over 10,000 marriages. And I would say a good chunk of those I've gone to. I've actually gone to a lot of the weddings too. Wow. And, that's exciting. But there's the book itself. My book's right here. Yeah. It has no fluff in it. I mean, I wrote it in a very business-like manner. It's very direct, and it gives 166 actionable tips on how to meet people and how to go about the process of getting, a person that you really love and care about into your life. And my clients, they tell me I'm direct, and I am pretty direct, but I'm graciously direct because I want you to, I want you to find somebody. And my success rate's high, over 65% of people end up in relationships. But one of the things I really like about the book, like you kind of don't even need me. The book takes you through, I put 15 worksheets in the book, and it starts with, where's your head at? Where's your mindset? Because like you said earlier, you've got to be thinking positively. And if you're not going to have success in dating. So that's my very first worksheet. Okay. And even when I talk to potential clients on the phone, they have to talk to me for 15 minutes first. Those are some of the questions I ask them just to kind of get a read on their personality. And, sometimes I say, I don't think you're ready to date. I don't think and sometimes I'll even be so, blunt as to ask, are you in any therapy, about being widowed or, go through some tough times.
So resolving some of that separation, grief. Yeah.
Yeah. All of that. And you have to go through, the different stages. And then, it takes you through all these worksheets. And then the last worksheet is writing a business plan for your personal life, which people are like, I'm writing a business plan for my personal life. I said, you bet you are, because, I want you to know what your goal is, what, maybe some barriers to entry are, what you think you need to improve on. How are you going to go about this? How are you going to do this? You can't just say, I want to meet someone. The whole organic thing doesn't exist anymore. It existed when we were in our 20s, meeting people in the wild, meeting people in college and grad school, in our 20s in the workplace, or, bars were still fun in our 20s, right? But, the second acts, once we're in our 50s, 60s, even 45, I get clients who, are widowed or, divorced, and they want to start the second phase of their life.
Sure.
And then I also added to the book too, I put in 15 QR codes, which go with the worksheet. So you get me actually coaching you on how to fill out the worksheet and how to kind of get you there.
So it links to a little video clip about you explaining or amplifying. That's great. That's great.
Yes, exactly. Because I want you to be able to take it step by step and be on the right page at the end of this, because people do make a lot of mistakes. I mean, there's 1,400 dating platforms out there. How do you know which one is the right one for you? I mean, that's tough, and plus, if you pick the wrong one, Joe, I mean, you're like, I'm quitting after a week.
Sure.
I'm giving up.
Yeah.
So, and I find that happens a lot when people will call me and they'll tell me what dating site they're on, and I'll be like, how in the world did you pick that one? And they'll say, and they might live in like Houston, and they'll tell me their best friend in Boston is using it. And I'm like, ooh, I get it. Okay. That dating app is very strong in Boston, but it has no members in Houston, so you've got to be, do your research, or have somebody else do your research. And when I'm researching for clients, I'm using Pew, I'm using Gallup, Statista,
Sure.
and I'm going to them for, okay, what's important to you? Is it education level? Is it being adventuresome and doing adventure, vacations? Is it, what age group are you looking for? All those kind of factors. And then, of course, you want to be on a dating site or a dating app that has, as a man, you want to be on a dating site that has more women than men. You don't want to be on one that's 80% men. And there are some like that, which are great for women,
Great
right?
for women, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So the book, Second Acts, is filled with resources and strategies and tips and worksheets and links to interviews, or at least your video clips. Great resources. So you've been in this matchmaking business for over 30 years. How is the whole dating scene changed for the 50 plus age group?
Oh, okay. When I, officially started, not at 14, that wasn't official. But when I officially started in my 20s and I started It's Just Lunch, it was the early 90s, and there was no online dating. There was no Google, just to give you an idea. There was nothing. So, I had this idea like, oh, what if there was a place you could go that was like an executive recruiter, but for your personal life? And that's the whole catalyst for the idea behind It's Just Lunch. But then, as we hit the late 90s, the 2000s, I started to see what was happening with online dating. And it initially started out, a mess, of course, chaotic. There's all these people doing things. There's these people scamming. There's these people who aren't who they, say they are. And by the time I sold It's Just Lunch around 2010, I sold it for two reasons. Number one was I kind of saw the writing on the wall. Online was getting so much better, and they were figuring out credible ways to verify people online that they really are who they say they are. They even know how to age photos now. So you can look at a photo and know, oh, this man I'm meeting for a date, he's going to look like this. He's not going to look, 20 years older than this.
Yeah.
And, so I started thinking that's going to be the biggest pool of people. It's not going to be the dating services or the matchmaking services anymore. It's going to be online. And I also realized people didn't know how to do it right, because you walk down the aisle maybe at 25 years old and you never said, oh, wow, I can't wait to do this again when I'm 50, and date again. You missed out on all of that stuff. And so I find the people that I work with, in the 50 to 70-year-old age group, for the most part, they're very scared of online dating. They think there's a stigma attached to it, which with the younger, the under 40s, there isn't. But there still is, a stigma for some people, more in our age group. And I'll just go back to what I was saying about It's Just Lunch. The other reason I sold It's Just Lunch, in 1 week, I got 2 offers for the company. At the same time, I was thinking about online was going to be the future.
Oh, there you go.
And I thought, this is the time to sell the company, and this is the time I'd like to work with people on helping them understand online dating and being able to, you asked how it changed. When I started in the 90s, there is no way I could have taken a client who was 60 years old. There was nobody to match them with.
Wow,
you know,
sure.
But now, with the databases I have with online dating, yes, I can do it. There's plenty of men, there's plenty of women. All the men are not married. All the good women are not taken. I'm trying to dispel that, to everybody.
Yeah, it's just blossomed then over the years, sure.
Yeah. And people still call me and they're like, I think all the good men are married. I'm like, no, they're not. 40% of men over the age of 60 are single. I mean, single, widowed, divorced, or something, but they're available. And men ask me the same thing. They'll say, oh, all the women, that are worth it are married. I'm like, no, they're not.
Of course not.
No, they're not.
Yeah. So what are the pitfalls? I mean, you've seen a lot of trial and error and a lot of the growth and development of these services. What are the common pitfalls people face when trying to use an online dating service for the first time? What do they need to watch out for?
Well, they need to watch out for, they have to have patience and perseverance. You cannot give up right away, because sometimes people, meet the person they end up with on the third date. Sometimes it's the 18th date. Personally, I was married for 24 years, and then I didn't date for 5 years because my kids were teenagers and I didn't want to. But when I jumped back into dating, I met my husband on my 6th date. So I met him, 2 months into it. So you've got to have the patience and perseverance that you're going to give it, the good old college try for 3 months. So you're really going to give it your all. You're going to go in with a positive attitude, and this is for you women out there. This is men's number one complaint, that a woman will send a man a like or a rose or a heart or a wink or a smile or something like that, but they don't send a message. And then the man's like, oh, I have to do all the work now. She just kicked the ball in my court, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm always telling women, especially like the 60s and 70-year-old crowd, you can't be passive. And then they'll come back at me and say, oh, but Andrea, I think they should reach out to me first. And I say, why? Why should they have to reach out to you first? We're living in the 2020s. It's like an equal world now. It's not like we're living in the 70s and 80s anymore. And plus, it just exudes self-confidence when you reach out to a man and with a good, you're initiating it. And it's a good message, and you've read his profile and found something interesting, and wrote him a little text about it. I found this really interesting about you, and here's a little bit about me. Would you like to meet for a cup of coffee? I'd love to get to know you better. It works wonders. Yeah. So the people that don't have success online are the ones who are very passive and just kind of sit there and just wait.
Sure.
Nothing's going to happen when you sit there and wait.
Sure. Can you walk us through, and there are several people who are listening that may have never used this kind of online service. Can you just kind of walk us through with selection, first steps? What do you do? How does it unfold? Can you just give us a...
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Probably the hardest part for people is going to be picking the right dating site or app. Well, I just said a couple of times there's 1,400 of them. So that's going to be pretty crucial. There's a couple sites, I'm just going to say right off the bat, that I like for our age group, for 50s, 60s, 70s. I like Match.com. I like Our Time. I like Bumble sometimes. Bumble is good for men because there's always more women on it. But there's some sites that are really good, and they've got such a wide database. So number one, you pick your site. Number two, you pay for the site. You do not do a free membership. You want skin in the game, and you want the person that you're going to be meeting to have skin in the game too, because you want them to be serious about, truly looking for a relationship too. Mm-hmm. Okay. Next thing, you have to have an interesting bio, and it should be short and sweet. No like novels, 2 or 3 paragraphs, or even making it written even easier for people to read, like with bullet points, just a couple highlights about you, a couple highlights maybe about what you're looking for. And that's it. Don't have a must-have list of, 10 criteria for men or 10 criteria for women. No. And I don't want to see any political rants in your bio. There's going to be a place for you on the site where you can, check off if you're conservative or liberal or in the middle or whatever you are. But political rants don't belong online. So keep them to yourself. If you're conservative or liberal, check that box off, and we can, you can go have your rants in person with another conservative person or another liberal person, Okay. Now, probably the most important thing after having the right site is having the right photos. It's a visual medium. You've got to look good. And that doesn't mean photoshopping your pictures or editing your pictures. It means just really good photos of you, and photos that show you doing something. Like, I don't want to see your LinkedIn photo. I don't want to see you're a real estate agent. I don't want to see that, blurry background and that dreamy look, of like a real estate agent. So you want action photos. So here's the thing. You're going to probably have some candid photos, on your Facebook or, just on your phone itself. So you want to take a look at those. And then when I'm working with clients, I have them send me the photos, and then I make a call whether or not they're going to go to a professional photographer. Mm-hmm. Professional photographers, it's $250 for dating sites. Photographers will do this, and there's some really good people across the country that do this. Sure. And they'll spend 2 hours with you, and they'll go out to the pickleball court with you. You horseback ride. They'll go out to the, there with you, you on a horse, you with your dogs, you swimming laps in the pool, whatever you're doing. And then they'll also get, a couple photos, because you do need a nice headshot. You need a nice full body shot, because if you don't have a full body shot, people are wondering why not. So the number of photos you want is to have 6 photos, and you want to have 6 good photos. So I would say about 70% of my clients, I end up sending to a photographer.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And you know what? They have a lot of success because of it. Good photos make the world of difference. Okay. So now you're on the right site. You've got your bio, you've got your photos. It's action time. So now what are you going to do? You have to kind of understand how to work the site. If you're working with me, I explain it. Here's what I would say. There's some great YouTube videos out there that, let's say you pick our time to use. Go to YouTube and look at how to use our time. And there'll be, and pick the ones obviously that are ranked really high. And that'll, give you some idea on how to use it. What you're going to do then is, and this is how I work with my clients. I don't want this to feel like a full-time job for you, because that's what people start to say to me. When they first call me, this is like a full-time job. And I'm like, well, then you're doing something wrong. So I tell my clients, I want you to stick to 30 minutes, 3 times a week. I want you on the site, and you can't do anything else in that 30 minutes except look for your matches, and you must send 5 messages. You must send 5 messages. So by the end of the week, you've sent 15 messages and you've only invested 90 minutes of your time. Of course, you're going to still have to check every now and then to see if they message back and, that type of thing. But the way the odds go, 1 in 5 will message you back. So never expect that you're going to, get 5 messages back when you, send a message. Those are the odds. 1 in 5 will message you back.
Sure.
So, okay. So now you've got, 3 messages. What people tend to do then is they start texting, and it's like, I'll talk to a client that's new and they'll say, oh, it's going great, Andrea. There's like 3 people I'm talking to. And I'll be like, well, how many dates did you go on last week? Oh, none. But, Rob and I have exchanged 6 messages and Joe and I have exchanged 12 messages. And I say, those aren't dates, right? Those are not dates. Dates occur in person. So what you need to do is like stop the talk now. And you can send a really nice message, something like, wow, I feel like we have so much in common. You'd be a blast to meet. Why don't we meet on Saturday or Sunday for coffee? I'm free around 11 both days and be specific with a place you want to meet at. And, if he or she is a half an hour away, split the difference, like pick a place right in the middle. But be specific. So be specific when you're available and be specific where you're going so that it's just easy for the other person to say, great, yes, and stop all this messaging back and forth. And boom, now you're on a date.
Great.
I want you to go on 4 practice dates the first 2 weeks you're working with me. You've got to, especially when you're coming out, of a long marriage or being single for a long time or being widowed. I want 4 practice dates, and 4 practice dates with people online, not like, your brother-in-law or something, like real strangers that you're going out with, because it builds self-confidence.
Why do you call them practice dates?
Well, you know what? They're really not. I just tell them it's practice dates.
Okay. Takes the pressure off.
Yeah, it takes the pressure off, and it makes their self-confidence just, go through the roof, because they'll tell me after like 2 dates, you know what? It was really fun, and I still am good at talking about things. I still am interesting, and he laughed a couple times, or she laughed a couple times.
Yeah, it does lighten. I get that. It really lightens the whole process. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And so that's what I tell people. And then I also tell people, don't talk on the dates about why you got divorced. It's inappropriate conversation for the first date. All the first date is information gathering to see if you want to go on a second date. That's all a first date is. But you're not going to dive deep into the custody battle or, the financial part of the divorce, or a long illness that went on for 20 years and you were, their caretaker, and not for the first date. You don't want to talk about, things like that. You want to keep it light. I always tell people to, read something before you go out. Make sure, I don't know where you're getting your news, a newspaper, Apple News, wherever you might be getting it, that, you're kind of with it, you know what's going on in the world.
Some topics.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Now, when we spoke earlier, you mentioned the importance of not waiting after that date, not waiting more than a few days before you connect again.
Oh yeah, I would even wait a couple of days. Not in this world anymore, because everything moves so fast with online dating. So let's say you went out to lunch today and you had a good time on the date. This evening, you should be sending a text to their phone, not through the dating site, but to their phone, saying, I had a really great time at lunch today. Are you busy Sunday afternoon? Do you want to go for a hike at Chautauqua? And offer up something, and thank them for the date. And I think you'll also have a very good idea by the end of the date, whether or not they're interested in seeing you again too. Now, if you went on a nighttime date, I would, maybe you went to dinner, I would wait till the next morning and,
okay.
Like late morning, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, and send him a message. If he picked up the check, I would, thank him. Thank you so much for, a lovely dinner and treating. That was very nice. I'd like to treat you to something. Are you interested in going to XYZ on, a date? A lot of times people will pick like concerts afterwards, or, music, or hiking, or, an outdoor activity, maybe. If they both play tennis, let's, go hit the ball around a little bit. And, maybe grab, brunch afterwards or something. So no, don't wait that long. Within 24 hours, you should be in contact with them again.
That is some great advice. I just want to repeat the sites that you recommend: Match.com, Our Time, and Bumble, especially for men. Those
Yes.
are good starting places for the 50 and over age group.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very good starting places.
Yeah.
Yes.
Great tips and great next steps. What about people who are just fearful or have a lot of reservations about getting back into dating, or maybe they've had bad relationships, or they've been hurt, or they're just not ready? How do you help them get over some of those barriers?
Well, that goes to that. I talk to each person on the phone for 15 minutes before I take them on as a client, and that's what I'm really assessing at that point. Is are they ready for this? And if something immediately comes out, like he cheated on me and it was horrible, and the divorce was just final last month, I would probably ask, have you gone on any dates since? And the answer is most likely going to be a no. And I'll say, well, do you think you can go on a date and not talk about how, he cheated and it was just a month ago? Because, that's pretty horrible what happened to you. Do you think you're going to be able to, not talk about that? Do you feel like you're ready? So, I'll ask those kind of questions.
Sure.
And be kind of open-ended, because I want to hear what they have to say. And the other thing too is when people have had like a rough breakup, a lot of times they're seeing therapists, which I'm really happy about. And another question I'll ask is, because they'll tell me on the phone, yeah, I'm seeing a therapist. I'll say, so what does your therapist think about you calling me? And if they say, oh, my therapist recommended you, or my therapist thinks it's great I called you, I'm like, good. It's safe to take them. The therapist thinks they're ready. If they say, oh, I'm not telling my therapist, she would say, oh, there's no way you're ready. I'm like, oh, well, maybe I'll say, maybe we should wait like another month, maybe, a little more therapy, unless you really, really feel like you are ready, to go out on, these dates. And you think you can keep it positive. But that's a red flag to me when I hear the therapist, they're not going to tell their therapist because their therapist would, disagree.
Sure. Well, so what are some of this is a great conversation, Andrea. I mean, I think for people that are ready to step back into the dating world and reconnect, and maybe they've been separated or divorced for years, or maybe never married, and they're wanting to take those leaps. So great information. What are some of the maybe top 2 or 3 takeaways from this conversation today? What do you say to people? What do you say to our listeners who are contemplating dating again?
Oh, if you're contemplating it, you're probably a little bit nervous, and that is okay. You should be nervous. That is totally normal. And you should also have a little bit of excitement too. So it's probably going to be like 90% nervous and 10% excited. If you're like that, I'm fine. You're ready to jump back in there because almost everybody's nervous. And you know what? And they're nervous about too, that their photo is going to be out there online. And that's a hump I have to get people over a lot too, and let them know, hey, it's normal. And they'll be like, well, I'm afraid my ex-husband's going to see it or my family's going to see it. And, you know, these dating sites are pretty smart. Like they'll allow you to put in blocks against people, you know, that you don't want to see you, like an ex-husband or something. And I'll basically tell them, don't worry about it. Everyone's doing it and you'll get over it so fast. Yes, you might see somebody from work, but guess what? They're on there too.
Sure.
You know, you're probably not going to choose them as a date, right? But they're there too. So, you know, you got to get over that stumbling block that your photo is going to be out there, and but the rewards you can reap are so huge. I don't worry about that photo. And you know, the other takeaway is make sure you have really good photos, because that is going to make the world of difference for your experience online. Because while we've got the bio and all that other stuff, both men and women look at the photos first.
Yeah.
I look at them, you look at them, you know, we all look at the photos. And so, you know, you want to look, you know, well groomed, you know, having a beard down to here that's, you know, all straggly, you're not going to get too far.
Sure.
It's just the reality, right?
Great tips. Yeah. And I like the point about showing yourself doing something in action, you know, out walking or playing a sport or having a cup of coffee or something like that, that shows the real person. Yeah.
Yeah. One of my favorites is a woman. She's just walking down the street with her dog and she's eating an ice cream cone. Oh, and I had another man. He's like in his late 60s and he still works on Wall Street. He's standing in front of his building in a suit and he's juggling pomegranates. And I'm like, you're nuts. This is hysterical. Yeah. And so many women commented on his photo because he wasn't like the typical stuffy Wall Street guy, you know, and he did really well.
Great. Those are some great tips. And I think really helping people open the doors. That's what it's all about, because it's easy to put those walls up, right? Or it's relationship looking for a new one. We got some walls, and the excitement is good, but the nervousness is also to be expected, right? Yeah.
Right. And you know what? Sitting at home, you know, binging Netflix, and you're not going to meet anyone that way. Or, you know, playing, I don't know, bridge or mahjong with your girlfriends. You're not going to meet anyone. You're a guy and you know, have your regular foursome of golf, you know, 3 times a week. You're not going to meet anyone. So you've got to, you can't be passive. Yeah. You got to get out there.
The chance encounters at the checkout line at the grocery store, those are pretty rare, right?
They're very rare. Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's great. It looks like we're out of time for today, though, Andrea. Before we wrap up, I just want to remind my listeners to visit my website at livingto100.club. Sign up as a club insider. As an insider, you'll enjoy many benefits, including copies of my 9 tips for living longer, inspirational quotes, and many other resources. And if you're affiliated with a senior living community, be sure to explore my Better, Longer, and Happier card deck series. You'll find these at livingto100.solutions, a powerful resource for your community. Thanks so much, Andrea, for being a guest on our program. How can people learn more about your work, and where can they get a copy of your new book?
Well, you can get a copy of my new book pretty much anywhere. It's Second Acts, winning strategies for dating over 50. So I think the best prices are on Amazon personally, but you can get them. You can get it anywhere. And you can also go to my website and it'll direct you right there. My website is 33,000dates.com. So it's 33000dates with an S.com. So 33,000dates.com. And oh, I know what I was going to say. The other fun thing about my my site is there's a really good quiz. There's one for men and there's one for women on how you kind of stack up against your peers in dating. It's 10 fun questions and you get rated. So it'll give you a good indication of where you are in the dating world.
So you get a score. How you stack
You
up.
get a score. You bet you do.
Well, that's exciting. 33,000, that's 3300dates.com. Great. Well, thanks so much for being a guest on the program. This was fun. This was fun.
Oh, this was really fun.
Very educational for our audience. So thanks so much for that.
Thank you, Joe.
And thanks to everyone for tuning in today. Hope to see you next time.